Insatiable, released in 1980, is a mature film that didn't just ride the wave of the golden age, it helped define it. Starring industry royalty Marilyn Chambers, the movie was a glossy, expensive-looking, in-depth character study, and it gave the mature entertainment business something rare: artistic ambition, high production values, and a set of performances that transcended the genre. This is the story of how Insatiable got made. In 1972, Marilyn Chambers shot to fame and shocked America with the release of Behind the Green Door, a narrative vehicle that juxtaposed her squeaky clean image as the Ivory Snow Girl with early genre content that managed to break through to mainstream theaters. However, as the 70s progressed, her career started to wane a little. Her performance in David Cronenberg's Rabid was met with a lukewarm reception, and Insatiable was her attempt to prove that she still had star appeal in the genre that launched her career. Enter Stu Segall, a director and producer with one foot in industry output and the other in 70s B-movie schlock, such as Drive-In Massacre. Credited as Godfrey Daniels for the movie, Segall was handed a $500,000 budget and set up an entity called Miracle Films and gave it possibly the best tagline in cinematic history. Essentially, it was a shell company to keep things tidy and would only be responsible for Insatiable and its 1984 sequel before being dissolved. The real money and muscle behind the distribution would come from Caballero Home Video, who would eventually ride Insatiable to millions in home video sales. But more on that later. Unlike most genre films by the 1980s, which had the narrative depth of a sandwich, Insatiable aimed for much more. The narrative follows the story of Sandra Chase, a globe-trotting model and actress with various desires. Her awakening unfolds through a series of flashbacks, dream sequences, and hazy, voice-overlaced monologues that owe more to a European art film than typical industry content from California at that time. And in many ways, that was the point. Director Segall wanted something closer to Belle de Jour than Debbie Doe's Dallas, and Chambers was all in on these lofty ambitions. She brought a level of acting commitment and emotional depth to Insatiable that can be considered rare when compared to many of her peers. She delivered introspective voiceovers, expressive physicality, and a palpable emotional arc. Chambers was also deeply involved creatively. She worked alongside the director, contributing to the film's tone and even performing the haunting title track, Shame on You. At the same time, she took a rather tongue-in-cheek attitude toward her early career. This can be seen in the Easter egg where she opens a closet and we see a box of ivory snow on the shelf. The very company that fired her from their advertising campaigns after she entered the industry. Other aspects of the production that raised the overall quality can be seen in the cinematography. James Bagdonis, credited as J.R. Baggs, who would later shoot the likes of Boston Legal and Modern Family, used diffused lighting and alternative angles to capture scenes in painterly, almost dreamlike compositions. Segall also splurged on crane shots and Steadicam rigs, and even an extravagant sweeping helicopter shot as Sandra's Ferrari pulls away from her stately mansion. All of this contributes to the feeling that you are watching something a cut above the norm. The film's high production, yet arty European flair wasn't just aesthetic, it was also geographical. Early scenes are set in London, where Sandra Chase is shown strolling along the River Thames, as well as around Tower Bridge, Hyde Park Corner, and a host of other locations. The London shots were second-unit footage, with English mainstream actress Joan Turner along for the ride as Sandra's Aunt Victoria. The rest of the movie was filmed in California, including the lush interiors of Grand Island Mansion in Walnut Grove, which doubled as Sandra's luxurious home. Several key names round out the cast of Insatiable, bringing gravitas to the already high-end nature of the production. Jesse St. James, who played Sandra's Agent Flo, is on top form, bringing an effortless, refined elegance to her role. Known for her almost conservative demeanor, St. James often played more mature, composed women, and Insatiable was no exception. John Leslie plays Roger Adams, an actor slated to be Sandra's co-star in an upcoming feature. He brought his usual charisma and rough-edged masculinity to the screen, and his chemistry with St. James in an exquisitely performed and shot outdoor terrace scene is yet another ingredient that elevates the production to one of the all-time greats. Serena, another icon of the 1970s and early 80s, played a supporting role in a jacuzzi encounter, and the superstar John Holmes appears in a dream sequence at the end of the movie. Interestingly, he was originally considered for a more leading role, but the actor's extracurricular activities at the time caused the director to rethink the casting, despite Holmes being one of the biggest male names at the time. Richard Pacheco and Mike Ranger round off the additional cast. Being regulars from the era and good at their craft, they are in ever-reliable form. When Insatiable hit theaters in select cities like San Francisco and New York, it made a respectable $2 million at the box office. But its real impact came with the advent of home video. On its first day of VHS release, the film sold 12,000 copies at $99 a pop. That's over $1 million in a single day. It became Caballero's crown jewel, dominating video sales for years and spawning a far inferior sequel, Insatiable 2, in 1984, which, despite its all-star cast, was a far cry from the quality of the original. The first even became the top-selling video of any genre, not just adult, for 2 years straight, a feat rarely discussed outside industry lore. Insatiable proved that mature film didn't have to be cheap or soulless. It could be glamorous, weird, psychological, even feminist if you squinted hard enough. Marilyn Chambers wasn't just a performer, she was an actress with intent. She was telling a story of desire, adventure, and control. That may sound grandiose, but for millions of viewers and more than a few future filmmakers, it mattered. It was also one of the last big genre films to straddle both mainstream curiosity and adult world notoriety before the industry splintered into non-film production, destined straight for home VHS players rather than theatrical release. Today, Insatiable is still talked about, partly for its vintage charm, partly for Chambers' magnetic screen presence, and partly because it was able to push the boundaries of what was expected in terms of production value. All of this combined helped make it one of the highlights of the golden age.